Hello, sleuthers. Today we are talking to the writers, the creators of Crimes of Fashion, Killer Clutch, Stephanie Sourapas and Tom McCurrie. This is Eric, and as you can tell, there is no Andrea, but this is still Hallmark Mysteries and more. This podcast was created by fans for fans and is not affiliated with or sponsored by Hallmark or the Hallmark channel. Okay, today is a fun day. One of the things that I love doing most is when we get to talk to the writers, the people who created the mysteries and the characters and everything that we enjoy as sleuthers. And today we are here talking to Stephanie Sourapas and Todd McCurrie, the writers of Crimes of Fashion, Killer Clutch. By the way, I love the Killer Clutch aspect of adding it onto it. I will say I'm not in love with Crimes of Fashion because I always write Crimes of Passion and I have to
Passion,
go
right,
back and
yes.
edit. So it's just me
Well,
being lazy.
it was
Is the only
interesting
real
because
reason.
we had actually a different title. It was called the Haute Couture Mysteries, but it was too kind of French, I think, for people to kind of grasp what it was about. And so we had to kind of come up with a whole list of new names, which is always very hard to do because there's a lot taken, or you kind of want to get into the title that it's a mystery, but then give a clue as to what it's about. So Crimes of Fashion was something that ended up on Tom's and I's list, as well as the producers, and Hallmark kind of liked it. And then Killer Clutch, of course, it's about a counterfeiting handbag ring. So that seemed
Perfect.
kind of perfect.
Yeah,
So,
and the
but yes,
little
it
double
started
entendre with
differently.
it too.
Yes,
My mother
some
also calls
subtext.
it Crimes of Passion. She forget you. She kind of, yes, she does the same thing. Crimes of
So
Passion. No,
She's
passion.
she's telling all her friends all about her daughter's movie, Crimes of Passion. Isn't that like from the 80s? Like, I think it's like 1980s, pretty adult uh type movie.
Oh,
Not
yes.
like
Oh, yeah, yeah, with,
adult, but like
Oh,
adult
oh, oh! I'm like,
mystery.
oh
yeah, with,
no,
No, not that kind. This adult
yeah.
oh no,
mystery-ish type one, like one of the
definitely not Hallmark.
one of the things. Yeah, definitely not, yeah, not that. So, all
Oh,
right. Are you guys ready? Ready to have some fun?
oh yes.
Yes.
Okay, Stephanie, I'm starting with you.
Okay.
Something I discovered. I did a little of this
Did a
internet.
little sleuthing.
Yeah, I did a little of the internet stuff, and I found basically you're very similar to me. You
Oh,
graduated high school in 1985. Same
yes.
here. You
Yep.
went on to Chicago and worked at a big advertising agency. I went
Yes.
on to Los Angeles. I worked at Chiat. You worked at BBDO,
Oh wow.
who,
Yeah.
ironically, BBDO was the other agency that had in LA had offered me a job, and I chose Chiat instead of BBDO. Um, you, though, did escape and got out of advertising and followed
Right.
your dream and moved to Los Angeles and became a writer. I left LA and came to Phoenix and did my little boring stuff. But so tell me a little bit about this journey of, hey, I'm, working in now were you working in creative or what were you
I
the
actually
agency?
worked in the media department, so
Oh,
we took the
so did
money
I.
and oh, wow, even
You are
more
me.
similarities. We took the money and
Right.
we allotted it to, newspaper, print, magazines, TV, etc. I worked on the Juicy Fruit, which I don't think is around anymore. But the Wrigley Gum
Right.
accounts were ours. It was pretty, that we worked in the Wrigley Building. I worked in the Wrigley Building, which is pretty iconic in Chicago. But when I was in Chicago, I wanted to be a screenwriter, and I took a screenwriting class, and I got a lot of really great feedback. And so I decided what you do at age 26, you sell everything and you move to California and live on a friend's couch, and try to um, create a career. Worked a lot. My first job was at the Game Show Network. I was a receptionist there. Fun fact, Eric, I know you love Brooke Burns. She's doing a game show called Tic Tac Doe
I
for
know.
the Game Show Network.
I just saw that today. I sent it to
That,
my daughter, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome."
Yeah. So I moved to LA, worked a lot in different Hollywood jobs. Writing is not something that you can necessarily go, oh, hey, somebody hire me as a writer. I kind of always had to do jobs and be writing on the side. And it wasn't until I had my kids that I really kind of committed to writing and wrote some children's books, wrote a novel, all that are sitting in a drawer collecting dust. And it wasn't until I met Tom through my husband. They worked at a company together, so you can get it. Tom can get into that when you get to him. We kind of came up with a really funny idea for a comedy, wrote a spec script on it, and that spec got us our manager and got us the producer of the Hallmark Mystery movie. So it was a really perfect kind of pairing, he and I. And now we're kind of devoted to working full time as writers, which is a really hard thing to do. It takes a lot of years. I mean, we are
Yeah.
probably a 10 to 13-year overnight success.
What you,
Or
you
more.
chose a great time to decide to become full-time writers when you had a writer's strike come in, put a
Yeah,
big
well, that
kibosh
yeah,
on it.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So, Tom, you unfortunately do not have, at least I could not find online, a hometown paper that seemed to love you as much as
Yes.
the Greenville one loves Stephanie. So,
So
tell
you
me a
don't
little
have
bit
my
about
bio ready.
did I go to high school with you? And do you also work at a agency in media and all that good stuff?
Well, actually, I came out from New Jersey to go to USC Film School. That's
Okay.
sort of how I got out here, graduate program. And from there, actually, during my time at USC, I interned for, you know, Michael Sourapas, who is going to eventually be Stephanie's husband, and that's how I, ended up meeting Stephanie later. And So yeah, Michael and I sort of started working together at his company for a while, and then I went on to work as a script reader, for Sony, Koch Media, Hannibal Classics, and that's kind of how I was always writing, but sort of covering screenplays and analyzing them really taught me a lot. Sort of like a mechanic taking apart a car and putting it back together again. Really helped me become a better writer. And I was always writing during this time and getting some assignments from independent producers, but nothing was ever made. Nothing was ever produced. So one of the things I ended up doing was working at Columbia College Chicago. This is the Chicago connection again. They have a satellite school out here called a Semester in LA at Raleigh Studios, and I would end up working there as a teacher, sort of adjunct, I guess, professor, kind of coming in to tell the students how to cover screenplays, screenplay 101 stuff like that. And John Katzman, who ended up being our manager, was running the program, and that's how I met John, and we sort of bonded, and yeah, and by this time, of course, I'm also I met Stephanie, was writing with her, through her husband Michael, and everything sort of came together. Yeah, John, uh, who was once working at Columbia College Chicago, the satellite school there, semester in LA, ended up leaving and becoming a manager. We'd shown him our material, and he had an in at Hallmark. He knew a Hallmark producer that was looking for material, and I guess the rest is history.
Awesome.
So yeah, it
Yeah.
was sort of, yeah, kind of. I don't want to say we Forrest Gumped our way into this, but in a sense, part of it, is probably accurate describing it that way. But
Yeah.
again, as Stephanie said, a lot of it is, you're always writing. As you're struggling to get into the business and you're learning your craft. And I think by the time we got to Hallmark, we had that craft down, I think, pretty well, and we're able to come up. We also trained ourselves to come up with as inventive and interesting ideas as possible as we were writing our own scripts, and I think that really benefited us at Hallmark as well.
All right. So recently we talked to Nikki Deloche and Megan McNulty, writing team there. Last
Right.
year we talked to Joel DeVove. I would never pronounce his last name. I don't know why you writers have to have hard last names.
I
It could
know.
just be McCurrie. Now that's nice and
Right. Yeah.
simple.
Or
And
Mac,
his,
no.
and his wife, Margo Foley, they wrote Cases of Mystery Lane. And it seems like there's the one partner who is sort of all over the place, big ideas coming in, this, that, and the other, and the other person seems to be more of the I don't want to organize sounds very, I guess, less creative, but the person who's maybe a little bit keeping the thing on path moving forward. So first of all, like, why did you guys decide to be a writing team and as opposed to
Mm,
writing individually? And
yeah.
then secondly, is like, what is your guys' dynamic as well?
It's really hard to find a writing partner. And actually, how Tom and I knew we could write really well together. He came over for dinner one night after I put my kids to bed. We came up with a funny idea over the dinner table. And after I put my kids to bed, we sat outside on my porch, and in 2 hours, we had the blueprint of what became the spec script that got us all of these people interested in us. Um,
All
and
right,
and
wait, first of all, how much wine was involved in this
you know
two
what?
hours?
Actually, not very
Not
much,
much. I think we kept our fact
shockingly,
sheets,
Okay.
pretty
right?
clear. Yeah.
But it's very rare that you can come up with a movie in 2 hours with yourself, let alone somebody else. And I think, I bring the female perspective, Tom brings the kind of male perspective. He also has such an encyclopedic memory for films. Like he'll say to me, that film that from 1938, blah 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 blah, and what?
That
I'm
we can
kind of
just plagiarize.
dumbfounded,
No, I'm just kidding.
but he's so good with the
Public domain.
story.
That's right.
Exactly. So it's rare to find somebody that you can write so symbiotically with, and I think Tom and I have it. And I also work during the day. Tom works at night, so we call ourselves kind of the 24/7 writing team, which really helps us get, if we have a deadline that is a quick turnaround, and we never really are in the same room. I think we kind of break story mostly on the phone. We
Yeah.
constantly are texting each other, hey, what do you think of this idea? Or call me later. I have an idea for this act. Or, if we have a problem to solve, or if we find a hole, which is the most horrible feeling as you're writing. I found a hole, that means there's some sort of problem with our thinking. So, we're lucky we found each other. Again, it was, we knew each other socially for so long that it just came as a surprise when we could kind of write together, and now we do a lot of things together. Tom also does some things on his own, but in terms of the Hallmark stuff, we're constantly coming up with new pitches because that is the lifeblood of keeping you know going at Hallmark. Is they do so many movies per year. It's incredible, and we're so fortunate that now we have more of an in with them that we can pitch them all sorts of ideas in terms of not only the mysteries but Christmas ideas and summer ideas, and their list is quite long.
All right.
Yes.
So
What she said, I agree with all of it. This is a good story.
so
It's like
I guess the
I'm watching my own podcast. This is I don't have to say anything.
the question though is, so but why did you guys decide team versus individual? Because there's
Um,
both work,
Oh,
right? But why did you
yeah.
decide that was
I,
right for you
well,
guys?
at least for me, yeah, it sort of just happened, I guess. But at least for me, I felt like uh, yeah, I was writing on my own, and some things were clicking, and but yeah, nothing was being made into a movie, and even if I was paid for a draft, nothing was being produced, and I guess yeah, I just felt like, oh, it might be good to sort of get out of that box of writing by yourself, and sort of expand your consciousness, if you will, and your artistic scope, and work with somebody else. And Stephanie was just perfect. I mean, everything just kind of clicked, and um, yeah, we haven't looked back since. Yeah, it all sort of it's sort of soulmates as writers, I guess, put it that way, or
I
writers.
also think, yeah, two brains are so much better than one, because sometimes as a writer, you can really second guess yourself. And, there's that automatic sounding board as you're writing with somebody else. What do you think of this idea? No, that's not going to work because of the second
Yeah,
act. There's so many more advantages of having two brains rather than one, and now I kind of, if if I'm thinking of something on my own, I kind of start second guessing. Wait a minute, I wonder what Tom would think of this. So it's just it's much better writing with another person, I think. And there are people out there. There's lots of crafts people who can kind of are better on their own. But I just find it better with two brains.
Yeah,
Now,
it's a good sounding board,
Oh yeah.
and also it's great to be able to fetch and complain to your partner.
Right,
So
right.
if you're not like by yourself going, "Oh my god, this is terrible," or "Why doesn't this work?" or "The business is tough, and what am I going to do?" And here it's like I
Yeah.
can call Stephanie and start complaining to her, and she has to suffer. But and she puts up with it. Thank goodness.
well, I really like how you guys said like it sort of fills your holes, as you said. Like Stephanie, you're saying gives the male perspective, or Tom, you're saying like from a creative thing, you're doing things, but there's obviously something missing and getting that other person. So right, so
Yeah.
collectively, it works in that way. Whereas, yeah, I guess some people don't know. Do you guys have heated discussions on differences of like, no, this character should go that way, this character should go that way, or
Uh,
are you guys like surprisingly like just whoa, we are think exactly the same and they just go pretty smoothly?
I
For
guess
the most part, sure. I think it's, again, it's kind of like a marriage. You're not going to agree on everything. Um,
you're not stuck living with
yes,
the
I
husband.
think there
That's the best
there have
part.
been times, yeah, where we get into, you know,
The week.
arg- argument, but maybe a disagreement, like agree to disagree. But it's rare. Luckily, the past couple of scripts that we've done, it's been very limited. But sure, there are times where you're like, wait a minute, I really love this scene, and it kind of sometimes comes down to your babies. There's a phrase in screenwriting. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings or kill your babies. Where you've got to throw something away that you really love, for the sake of the story or for the sake of editing, for the sake of cutting the script down because you've got to get to production. And now you need to, or they can't budget. They can't budget that scene. So you've got to get rid of it. Um, I don't know. Have we ever had any knockdown drag out fights? I don't think so.
I
I
think we
don't think
were,
so.
one time, I guess we were just trying to figure out how we were going to make a deadline. I think we were sort of like,
Oh, right.
can we fix this scene in time to make the deadline that we had to hand something into Hallmark, and we were sort of stressing out about that. But yeah, most of the time, well, I guess I think hopefully, like every good partnership, if if the other person doesn't agree with your approach or your idea or whatever, you say, okay, move on. Let's come up with something else. And I think that tends to be what we do. We don't go, I'm going to dig my heels in and force her to,
Right.
knuckle under to my idea. Cause then, you know, in my mind, it's like, well, if Stephanie's having a real problem with it, then maybe there's something that's not quite right with my approach or my idea. And so, when I was running by myself, I could do whatever I wanted. But here, it's just another dynamic, which I think is more helpful, frankly, because it's just getting automatic feedback if you're missing something as someone on your own writing. Here, it's like, okay, let's come up with something like another approach or a third way of doing it, and usually that works out. Although for me, and I do like the idea of bickering a little bit, because if things go too smoothly, sort of like a smooth, you know, film set. If things are going too well, that means like we're missing something,
Yeah.
or we're not, sort of maybe working out some of the problems, or we're sort of glossing them over. But for the most part, as you can tell, we're still talking to each other, so that's good. We're still
just
partners.
you
We
just
haven't
never happen to see each
duel.
other
We
in the
don't have a
same
duel.
room because
Right,
got to keep
right.
that geographic boundary.
Yes, that's true too. Yes, yeah. So, but no, no, we get along famously, and but yeah, I think, yeah, sometimes it's good to have that distance too. Yeah, exactly. If you're sort of hanging over each other's shoulder, I think we tried to do that a few times, and it just we almost were freezing up because it felt like
Yes.
we had to get something done, because we're both in the same room, and then we started to just go blank. So I thought that was sort of an interesting kind of thing that happened to us. So we started to, once we started writing, if you will, apart or in separate locales, things went much more quickly. And it does speed up the process too, because if you have to be together all the time to write, it just slows things down to a crawl.
Now, do you sit there and say, okay, you do this act, you do that act, or does it go sort of in continuous? And do you have like a shared Google Doc kind of thing where you're working on?
Well, we
Or
work off final draft, but what we tend to do is like, oh, you do the first half. Well, we work out the outline first, the treatment, so we both know the story, beginning, middle, and end. And we do that. We could do that together over the phone. But then when we start writing, we usually split up the script in halves. You do the first half, I'll do the second, and then we merge them, and then go back and forth doing different drafts depending on what needs to be fixed. So Stephanie might do one draft. I'll wait and see what she does, and she sends it back to me, and I'll do my version. And since we're working at different times of the day, as Stephanie said, it's almost like you're on a submarine with a hot bunk. You sort of, one person's on duty, the other person's asleep, and we do our drafts and hand it to each other, and then Stephanie then does her version. When I'm asleep,
Yeah.
so
Right. I
while
wake
I'm
up
doing
and,
something else.
I sit down to my computer around 7:38, and there, boop, there's the fresh draft from Tom. Then I, work on it during the day, and about 3, 4 p.m. I send it to him, and then he tackles it, at night. So yes, it really works well for us. And every team has their kind of different way. But I also moved during the pandemic. I moved away, so Tom and I were still working together, and that's when we had done our first Christmas movie for Hallmark, Making Spirits Bright. And that was something that we just did over the phone because we couldn't be in the same location. And we kind of found that we worked better by sometimes just thinking about it and coming back on the phone going, all right, I've thought about it. What do you think of this? Um, Very rarely do we sit in the same room. Occasionally we'll have lunch and then we do come up with some good ideas at lunch. But it just works well for us to work the way we do. And we get things done very quickly that way. So,
All right, so you just mentioned it, the Making Spirits Bright. So this obviously isn't your first, the Hallmark, but so one is a very cute, by the way, love Taylor Cole, but one's a
yeah,
very
she's great.
cute, Christmas rom-com. The other is a mystery, which is kind of a, I don't want to say a gritty mystery, but it's
Yeah.
not like a, it's not super, super cozy.
Right.
So how was it writing like a rom-com versus writing a mystery? And what, you've got this thing going with the rom-com. What made you decide, hey, we're going to go ahead and shift over and do a mystery now?
That's a good question. That is a good
I
question.
know it
Did
is
we
a
just
very
sort
good
of
question.
we just sort of I mean, obviously Hallmark is known for their rom-coms and their Christmas movies, so that was sort of our first pitch. But I guess maybe it was a type of thing where it's like, well, they're looking for mysteries. Let's pitch them one. Was it that simple, or did we
Yeah,
pitch?
it kind of was, and we were looking for other ways to kind of break into there. We had done Making Spirits Bright, and then we kind of were twiddling our thumbs, going, "Okay, wait a minute, what else can we get in there?" I think Tom and I have a darker sensibility in for what we like personally to watch, and it honestly is not as maybe formatted as some of the Christmas movies because we're working actually on one right now, and we did the Making Spirits Bright. There's definitely, I feel, more of a formula to the Christmas movies as opposed to the mysteries. And the beauty of this mystery was that it was pretty much our idea. It's not based on any IP. It's not based on a book, which is rare these days. It seems like Hollywood that kind of is everyone is really hot to find the next hot IP. And in terms of IP for if your listeners don't kind of know what that is, it means kind of based on a book. It means like a pre-sold audience, somebody who kind of knows that material and will tune in because of it. We were just looking for ways to get in there, whether that was a Christmas idea, a summer movie idea, or a mystery idea. And it just happened to be that this mystery idea, they really got it. Uh, Emily in Paris at the time was a huge show. And we kind of thought of this as Emily in Paris with a mystery angle. And it happened to be the executive's favorite show, Emily in
Oh,
Paris. So
okay.
immediately got it, and it sold pretty quickly, which kind of surprised us too. Again, we, not being, we're kind of newbies. I feel, even though we've been in this business a long time, I feel like we're newbies in terms of actually selling and getting something produced and something on the air. There's a lot of people in Hollywood who make a career out of selling things, but it never makes it to the air.
Yeah.
There really is, a lot to be said for that, because you can make a nice living at that, but it always is nice
Sounds like
to,
a good job.
yes, to see your things come to fruition
Yeah.
and actually watch it in front of an audience like everybody else. But that one was special that way, and it really took us by surprise when it sold. And it was a lot of fun to write because we weren't constricted by um, kind of some of the Christmas parameters. We got to really have fun with this because, again, it wasn't based on anything, and so it, Tom and I could make it up. In fact, we had only really sold the original. It was a 2-page document, and we had 3 episodes because you kind of sell these mysteries in terms of where is it going for 3 episodes. And
Gotcha.
the first episode 1 was a paragraph. Um, and so when Tom and I, when we sold it and we had to sit down right there into treatment, we thought,
Like,
what is this about?
yeah, we have very little
Hadn't really,
other than the
we
hook.
had an idea, but we didn't really know. And so it was just such a wonderful surprise. The Hallmark execs were so wonderful and so supportive in letting us come up with our vision for it. It was a really wonderful development process with them because they really trusted us with the material. I mean, that was so gratifying, especially since we were kind of newbies, and but we had a lot of fun with it. Fashion is just really a great place to to put a murder. A lot of very colorful characters in fashion. We were shocked that they wanted to shoot this in Paris, and they shot it in Budapest. We'd even on the document put, because their closest Canadian kind of city to Paris is Quebec,
Right.
and so we'd even attached a uh, kind of a Google jump to what places in Quebec can also look like Paris, because we were just so convinced that they would be shooting this in Canada that we wanted to not give them a reason to say no.
Yeah, no.
Right.
So and then lo and behold, yes, like, we're going to shoot this in Paris and Budapest, and we were kind of shocked, thinking, wow, this has never really been done where they've actually, I take that back, because dancing
Detective
the
Oh, Dancing
dancing
Detective, they shot it in
detective,
Malta,
was
yeah.
Malta.
they shot that in
Yeah.
Malta, right? So that was kind of a European set, but we really were surprised at them wanting to kind of jump off with us too. So
So now,
Yeah.
how is writing a mystery different than writing a rom-com?
Yeah, obviously with the rom-com, there's a certain formula that you have to stick to, and boy meets girl, boy loses girl, or vice versa, girl loses boy, and they all get back together again. With the mystery, yeah, it's just so much more complicated, but it's yeah, obviously we can be much more inventive with the twists and turns and all the red herrings, and it's just yeah, but because we had to come up with it from scratch, we didn't have any sort of template to work from other than sort of mysteries we'd already seen. It was a fairly heavy lift because we had to come up with all the red. How many suspects did we have? We seem to have like what, a dozen, or it seemed to
7,
be that
yeah,
way. 7,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Maybe we trimmed them down, but and then we had to make sure that everything all sort of fit together and sort of was coherent. Story wise. And,
And 2 murders.
and 2 murders, yeah. And we wanted to sort of introduce the element of, yeah, saving Charlotte from sort of a permanent home in jail, if you will, as kind of increasing the stakes as opposed to just having Lauren sort of avenge a murder, if you will, and find the killer who murdered her friend. So we had to keep sort of Charlotte in the mix too, with all the, so a lot of story elements to service, and yeah. So I guess it was much more complicated, but just much more fun and liberating at the same time, because we didn't have to necessarily follow some of the more restrictive kind of formulas that the rom-coms, as wonderful as they are, just they have to be that way. So you're not going to have a rom-com where the two people don't get together at the end. Certainly not in a Hallmark movie. Yeah, it was, but again, it sort of allowed us to sort of to go in directions and sort of explore different characterizations and kind of come up with different twists and turns that we could never do in a rom-com. I'd love to do more mysteries, so hopefully we can do more Crimes of Fashion sequels.
Yes, there are a lot of deadly fashion accessories out there
Yeah, that's right.
trying to, no pun intended, to bring to light.
So I know that you like to write and like to get movies produced, but if you they said, hey, you can write mysteries or you could write rom-coms, which do you think you would uh, choose?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one because sometimes we think of some really fun Christmas ideas, and I'd love to write that one, um, and we've come up with other mysteries that we'd like to write too. They're both really.
You can only pick one. I'm not. I'm.
Oh, I can only
You
pick
don't get to do
one.
your little
Ah,
hedging.
that's like Sophie's Choice. Hey,
I only ask hard questions.
Well, for me, it's
I don't
mystery.
know. I think probably mystery, but I hate to limit again, I hate to
Right.
limit myself in
Yeah,
terms of, because you never know when your next job's gonna come.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But
Yeah. The right answer is I like to, write anything that gets produced.
anything,
That's
right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Long as,
right.
whatever they offer. No.
Honestly, the mysteries are, and Tom hit on that, where I feel like they're maybe not as formulaic, and so as a writer, you get to have maybe a little bit more fun creatively to come up with these different worlds, come up with these different murders, come up with all of the red herrings to kind of throw people off the scent, because the sleuthers are very, very smart. The sleuthers are, they watch so many of these that you don't want to kind of fall into that format where you give yourself away before everyone has had a chance to solve the murder on their own. I guess I would say mysteries only because they are um, fun to write.
Yeah,
All right.
planting the clues, and the other thing too. I mean, they're I guess obviously with the rom coms you have high romantic stakes, but certainly with the mysteries you have life and death stakes often, and that
Right.
creates more
Yes.
suspense and yeah, much more tension, and it's yeah, a much well, as you say, grittier and yeah, just more I guess maybe realistic, I suppose, than
Yeah.
maybe the rom
And
coms can be.
and maybe a little deeper in terms of the characters. The mystery can breathe a little bit with some of the characters, whereas in the Christmas movies, it's kind of more about how they feel about the holidays. You can get deep as well, but because the mystery series continue with
Right.
hopefully more episodes, you get to know these people much more than you would on a one-off Christmas movie that they make once a year, and then it kind of goes away. The beauty of the mysteries, them coming back, is you get to know their families. You get to know, whoever the ancillary characters are a little bit more, the sidekicks, the you get to know the murders, the culprits, the assailants. It's just a little deeper, I think, and that makes them maybe a little bit more special to write, because you can continue with these characters and get to know them and then not have to say goodbye.
And you
Right.
can go a little darker too, with some of these
Right.
characters than you can say in a rom com. With some of the backstory we had with Andre, with his criminal
Right.
family, and certainly with Lauren, with her mother's death and dealing with that, and that's why she's you know really sort of obsessed, if you will, almost with trying to rescue Charlotte, who's kind of stood by her, with that tragedy. And yeah, so we can explore those. Yeah, I guess a little more of the human condition maybe sometimes that you can do in a rom com. Although rom coms are just great too because you just really they can be so transcendent in their own way. So yeah, so we don't want to say rom-coms are inferior, but it's just sort of
Yeah.
apples and oranges, I suppose.
All right.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So we're going to talk crimes of
just
fashion
in
because
case
that's why
Hallmark's
we're.
listening and wants to offer us like 50,000 rom-coms to do. No, just kidding.
uh, well, I'll say about Hallmark listening. We did talk to Lisa Hamilton Daly, and one of our big pushes that we do as a podcast is we believe that all the mysteries, yeah, should have three because, just as you said, um,
Yeah.
that 70 that they have to they you have to build those characters, and it takes a couple episodes to really get to know them. And especially the first ones, you're introducing a lot. There's a lot going on, and so it just,
Yeah.
I don't want to say they're necessarily clunky, but it's harder. And the second one and the third one, when we have a little bit of established characters, you don't have to deal with that, so you can really get into some more of that depth. Unfortunately, she agrees. So I'll say right now, you guys are greenlit for four more. So
Lisa, did you hear that?
consider
Your
No, Eric
lipstick
said
out
so.
here.
Eric
Right.
said
consider it
so.
done. I'll sign off whatever you need, and I'll just tell her okay. So, but crimes of fashion. So why fashion? Why Paris? Like, what prompted you to say, "Hey, this would make a great idea for a mystery"?
Well, I guess the Emily in Paris connection probably had a lot to do with it, right? I think
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're just
And
watching
then
Emily in Paris and going, "Hey, let's kill somebody."
Yeah.
yeah, right.
That's what
Yeah.
I think of when I watch every TV show. No.
Well, then we came across the job of a fashion psychologist.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the jumping off point of, wow, that's a very unusual career. What could we do with that? And again, the background of Lauren. Obviously, she went to school. She studied. She went to Cornell. With a psychological background, and so she can read people. It just seemed like a perfect career to have, and send her to Paris. We loved that kind of fish out of water, an American in Paris. Her going, bringing her American ideas because her father um, was a detective, now retired, but she grew up kind of listening to him break these cases, the hot dog, sitting in the park with the hot dog, talking about the cases, sometimes unlocked things for him, which is a pretty heavy thing to maybe put on a child to be talking
It's
about,
Hallmark
you
universe.
know,
It's fine.
but
There's
it kind of fit in terms of she brings that sensibility of knowing how detective works. A detective works because her father was one. Obviously, he brought the job home a lot, and so when we found this career, we just thought, oh well, of course, fashion in Paris go hand in hand. Wouldn't it be great again with that fish out of water? Because we thought about putting it in New York, but then we thought, there's not really a ton of movement for Lauren because
Yeah.
she's from there. Her father was a detective in Brooklyn. It just felt like we needed to get her out of her comfort zone. Um, and so we put it in Paris again, kind of thinking that they would shoot this in Canada. And how thrilled we were to find out that they did about 3 days, 2 or 3 days, I think, in Paris. And they actually stole a lot of shots there, which was fantastic because we were told, don't write too many don't write too many Paris locations because we might not be able to do that. But
Have things take place
they
indoors.
did
Yeah.
more than we kind of could have ever hoped for. The Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower. Unfortunately, that day was not spectacular in terms of the weather, but they really got a lot of shots in. Yeah, and we just kind of thought, well, fashion again. I kind of prefaced it before by saying, there's a lot of really colorful characters in fashion, and it just seemed kind of a perfect place to, Ricardo and Virgil. All these European actors really kind of putting on their best. Karl Lagerfeld, Valentino impressions and was really fun. And we also had that touchstone of The Devil Wears Prada. again, of those great fashion people, um, how they're just really colorful. And we didn't think it was going to get as gritty, and that opening sequence and the subsequent action shots were pretty incredible. um,
Yeah.
the director just really ran with the action on it, which was exciting. And I'm not sure if they used a stunt double, but
They had to
I
have.
think they did. They probably had to.
Certainly, yeah.
Although if
In the
Brooke did
window,
that, I mean,
but not with the rats. The rats had no stunt double.
oh yeah, the rats were
Right.
real. Those
But,
rats were real. We only had one rat in our in
yeah, that's right.
our draft. We had one rat.
Yeah, they
Uh,
dialed it down to one rat in their script, but then they were able to find more rats on the set, I guess, and
yes.
the Rat Wrangler really came through in a great way.
So I
But
was going to along those lines. I'll say that probably if you looked at what was trending on Google after this movie was people searching, is a fashion psychologist real?
Yeah.
Because I know
Yeah.
Andrea, my co-host, did it. We heard many different people like, wait, that's not a real job, is it?
Yeah.
And then Stephanie, thanks to you, you told me about the Rat Wrangler being, because we asked, in our podcast when we were reviewing the movie, like, what do you do with that? And you said that there's a job for a rat wrangler. So we learned two new things watching this,
Two
that
new
a
jobs.
fashion psychologist exists and a rat wrangler
Two
exists.
new jobs. Right.
but
And part of her job is also performance coaching. I don't know if you were familiar with that show Billions.
Well, now you're
Um,
stealing my next question, but
oh, okay, all
that's
right.
fine.
Zip.
we're just we're just eating up your interview time
Yes.
by
No,
talking.
no. That's why I was going to go there exactly. Is I read in your thing that you based the Lauren's character off of Wendy Rhodes from Billions. Now you did skip the dominatrix aspect of the
Yeah.
job
Well, yeah.
of
I don't
her
know if that would have made it
character, I
past
Not
guess.
Hallmark
quite.
6X.
Not
But
quite Hallmark
so
branding.
how did you? Yeah, how did you look at Billions? Well, you looked at Emily in Paris, then you looked at Billions, two very different shows. Like, how do you're looking at all these things, and it somehow turns into Lauren.
Yeah. Well, it made sense again. Maggie Siff's character, and I think, yeah, she does a lot of performance coaching, more so, but she also understands kind of the psychology of trying to get people to perform in very high pressure environments. And it was that because I think fashion is pretty high pressure, especially around collection times when you've got to put on a collection, and it's a very public thing. That to us was kind of fascinating, that idea of performance coaching. And so that kind of then informed us having the head designer, having a lot of anxiety issues. And you kind of realize later on when you're watching the show why he has so many is because he's kind of masterminding this very devious plot. But it just seemed like a great jumping off point, that character of, because also in fashion you've got to know trends. And that is also part of the fashion psychologist's job, is to be reading the marketing materials to know where trends are going, because fashion informs all of the trends. And so it just seemed kind of like a really natural thing to make Lauren this kind of composite character. And I think it works. I think that she kind of deals with the performance coaching of each of the staff members at Levine, the House of Levine, but then also helps Andre understand people's character and their motivations, which kind of really lends well for their partnership. And her him, kind of listening to her, knowing that she knows what she's talking about. She knows how to get people to talk. And
Yeah.
so it just really seemed like a beautiful kind of way to meld those two and give her a distinctive career that maybe you'd never heard of, which was always great because, you know, there's a lot of careers that have, been in the mystery element world, that we all kind of know of, but this was a departure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think also one of the things, we started out writing. Stephanie and I started writing, or started out writing feature specs, and so we were always kind of focused on, with features, you want to have the high concept, something that really stands out from the pack and is distinctive to the audience. And we sort of brought that to this idea too. We're trying to come up with, okay, they do a lot of these cozy mysteries and small town settings. What can we come up with that is a departure from that to make the Hallmark execs stand up and take notice? And so I think that was part of our thought process. Yeah, coming up with Paris as a setting. Oh, that's fresh. Sort of that European setting, but also the fashion psychologist's job and the counterfeiting and yeah, we try to sort of throw in as many different unusual and hopefully inventive elements into the hook, and I think that thank goodness they responded. But that was sort of also our approach. We try to come up with ideas that aren't so similar to things that they already have. Otherwise, they'll probably pass on them or say, here it's yeah. I think one of the benefits is that it's so unusual, and breaks the mold a bit with the typical Hallmark cozy mystery.
All
Well,
right,
and I
so
think.
sorry,
Oh,
you
sorry,
mentioned
Eric.
you wrote feature specs for us who are not in the biz like you. What's a feature spec? What do you
Oh,
mean by that?
just a spec screenplay that is meant to be, say, a 2-hour movie released in theaters.
Okay.
Although
Or
nowadays it's where I guess most of
nowadays.
them are now going to streaming. This
Yeah.
is back in the day in the 2010s, I guess, when we were writing the feature specs, when they still were releasing sort of mid-budget adult themed movies to theaters. Now it seems to be all either superhero movies
Framing.
or art house films. But
Right.
yeah, that's so yeah, we
So no
started out sort of
commercials.
writing those movies with trying to come up with high concepts, and we sort of brought that to Crimes of Fashion as or Haute Couture, I guess the original title, as okay, this is like a high concept sort of Hallmark mystery. But yeah, Stephanie, you want to say something? And
Yeah, well, just kudos to Hallmark for swinging for the fences. I mean, they're really
yes.
changing. I think they're changing their programming up a lot. They're willing to kind of take a chance on some of these different ideas that maybe they weren't, so they wouldn't embrace it so much in the past. But I think they're really, um, they love hearing different ideas and they're willing to give things a shot. So we're just grateful that they kind of saw this as something that was very different and kind of broke the mold.
But still something that would appeal to the Hallmark audience.
But yes, again, fashion, it's a
Yes, that
very,
helps.
it feels like very, feminine I mean, I think every female's bucket list is to go to a fashion show one day.
In
It's
Paris,
mine.
yes.
It's mine.
Well, we couldn't have been more excited because last year we did a like 10 things we want to see in Hallmark, and one of them was a high fashion murder. Though we were not as inventive and bold as you because we settled on New York. So you
Well, which is a major fashion center,
you
and we
you, you
don't,
you
we
elevated and made the
yeah.
idea actually interesting and feasible. So
We just felt she yeah, I mean, we
yeah,
felt Lauren would be really sort of in over her head in a foreign
yeah.
country,
Yeah.
not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, not knowing how the
I,
police worked. But
I
yeah, no.
I think her
But
biggest
we're on the same
challenge
wavelength though, Eric. So there you go.
I think her biggest challenge was trying to find a hot dog stand in Paris
Yeah, I know,
versus
right? Right,
that's the mystery. Where do you find a
Yes,
hot
yeah,
dog
exactly.
stand in Paris?
that's one of the plot holes we never we'll solve for the next
Crimes of
Well,
fashion.
that,
Hot
how
dog.
do you yeah, the great hot dog mystery of Montmartre or something.
well, that's the beauty of Hallmark universe, you know. There's hot dog stands everywhere in Paris. That's not an issue. So,
But yeah, we were just so happy the way the film looked too, just the way it was directed and
Yeah.
just yeah, the cinematography. We were just Stephanie and I were really pleased with just the way they
Oh,
executed
right.
our idea and frankly improved it. The way they filmed it. So we were yeah. So kudos to we want to just give kudos to the production people, director and DP and the rest, and of course the acting, and the actors,
Costumes, right,
costume.
everybody
Yeah,
really.
everyone really just yeah.
right.
So
So
although obviously we're the
I
foundation,
think I
but they just made it work.
accidentally shared my Google Doc with you guys with all my questions because
Oh,
you're leading right into all of them perfectly.
we're
So
just so in
I
sync. That's why,
I
Eric.
do I when you saw the casting for it, what did you like? You guys obviously wrote it, and you had something in your head, right? Now with Lauren, maybe you had a little Emily, maybe you had a little Wendy like look, which I guess they're both dark haired. Obviously, Brooke
Right.
is light haired. But when
Right.
you were writing them, you had these characters in your head. When they cast it, what did you think as far as how they matched up with what you envisioned?
Oh, I honestly, I think I envisioned her as a brunette when I was writing it, because again, the Emily in Paris, the Maggie Siff character, Wendy Rhodes, yeah, both brunettes. I think I had it as
Did you
more
have
in
a Hallmark?
my mind.
Did you have a Hallmark person at all when you write?
Yeah,
Honestly, yeah, I think I was thinking Taylor Cole because I know
yeah,
that,
yeah, from
yeah,
the American
Oh well,
Spirit,
so you
right?
just gonna become
Yeah.
the Taylor Cole writer.
right.
Not that I would complain.
Well, and
Making
again, because
Paris
we had
murders. No.
right, because we had done the Christmas movie for
Right.
her, I guess maybe, yeah, I kind of had her in mind for that. And so when we heard Gilles and Brooke had been cast, that was exciting to us because, I didn't realize, but Gilles was born in France. And
Yeah,
so and just, he's so he's just got such charisma, and Brooke does too. And so and it all comes down to chemistry, between the two leads. And they definitely have it.
Oh
So,
yeah.
it was kind of a huge relief to know that that was the case. But we were thrilled because Sheila had never done a Hallmark movie before, and we thought, what a perfect casting. Again, because he is French. And you haven't seen him on Hallmark. So how wonderful to pair him with Brooke, who's one of my favorites, in the Hallmark actress universe. And just, yeah, we're thrilled with we're thrilled with the
yeah.
pair up. Yeah, I was thinking of brunette, honestly. I was. Oh, I mean,
Yeah, so
Tom,
was
did you
I,
have
but
any?
yeah, I guess, yeah, I was
Now, how
thinking
about so
Paris,
did
but
you
but
have
Brooke worked just so well. I just now I can't imagine anyone else in the part. So it's one of
Yeah.
those things where yeah, it's unexpected, but yet perfect at the same time.
now Tom, did you have uh Taylor in your head as well as the
Um,
character, like the Hallmark
yeah,
character, or
yeah, it's sort of a dark, yeah, exactly, yeah, but Brooke, yeah. At first, I was like, oh, Brooke, okay, and oh wow, she's, and I saw the movie, and wow, she's really good. That
Yeah.
this is, she just it just fit like hand in glove, and now it just so I you have these preconceptions, and then they can be changed when well, thank goodness I'm not a casting director, I guess, put it that way. But yeah, she really knocked it out of the park, and Gilles did too. Yeah, it just, I love a lot of these, French neo noir films. Belmondo and Alain Delon, and
Right.
some of those detective movies from the '60s and '70s that they starred in France.
this is what you're talking about, Stephanie.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, La Samurai. I'm starting to quote. Maybe we could do, one of those movies for Hallmark. But in any event, yeah, Gilles really sort of captured that kind of almost like Humphrey Bogart French version, French style that
Yeah.
some of these Belmondo and Delon movies did in the '60s and '70s. So we could talk, Eric, for like a couple more hours about French, French
French film.
noir,
Yeah.
post-war French noir, and just forget about Hallmark for a few hours. But
Uh,
but it,
you're just showing off that USC film school.
getting my Quentin Tarantino film geek credentials going here. But
Wait,
no, but I think that's another reason I love this movie, because it's not just a romance. It's also a mystery. It's also sort of French noir. It's about fashion. It's about counterfeiting. It's a combination of all these different genres in one movie that really just meshes so well, and hopefully we can continue making more of them.
Yeah.
so you mentioned about you kind of when we were talking casting, you have to let some these preconceived notions go, but that kind of goes much bigger because as I talked to a lot of your writers, and I assume you followed a similar process, you write, you get that final script, you turn it in, and then you're kind of done. And then it's up to the director, the producers, the editors, and the actors to turn it into what it becomes. So I know you said you were pleased with it, but how much like if you were to send me your script and I were to read it and then I compared it to the movie, how closely does it resemble what you guys turned in, and how much did they have to change? Because they do things on the fly and all that.
Yeah, for budget. Yeah, they did
Right.
trim some scenes for budget, right, Stephanie? Some of the
Mhm.
opening
Yeah.
scenes. I think some of the scene where, after post, I think they cut a scene after, um, when it turns out that Ricardo's signature was forged. There was a scene sort of
Oh, right.
explaining all that a bit more. But yeah, but otherwise, I thought they hewed pretty close to what we wrote.
They did compress a lot of the scenes because of how much the action, like, we did not have
Yeah,
we did have in our first version something involving a police car that Andre zooms up in a police car and, you know, captures, Virgil and kind of throws him over the hood.
As
And
opposed to running
they
them
said
over.
"Oh, no, 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 absolutely no moving cars, no moving cars." And then in the end, that's exactly kind of what they captured even more, where
yeah,
they actually have him being hit and flying over the car and,
which was cool.
so
Yeah, we were
so
delighted because that's
yeah,
kind of what we
oh,
wanted in the first place.
completely. Um, but that takes up space, action sequence take up space, and so some of the scenes were compressed, but to our delight, most everything, lines stayed intact. Um, and there were very few things cut, which sometimes you can kind of watch the film afterwards going, oh my gosh, that got cut, that got cut. But this one was really um, pleasantly surprised that
Yeah.
everything kind of
I,
was to the draft. Yeah.
I think they might have cut some of some of Andre's, compatriots on the police force. We had them being a bit more snarky, some more, hard boiled lines, kind of
Right.
digging at him due to his family background. But yeah, for the most part, it kind of, still followed
Is
our script. Frankly, our original script didn't have her jumping through the window. Yeah, that
No.
was a nice surprise
that
too.
is one of the best parts
Yeah,
of the movie.
we just we
Yeah.
had her just, like, running out of the warehouse, and running down, obviously, the Seine being shot at, or, the walkway next to the Seine, but yeah, that was an awesome shot, so, yeah, this is where,
Right.
the writers can take credit even though, we really didn't do it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting you brought up the whole background for Andre because uh, when I watched it the first time, I kind of caught it, but I didn't really. But after seeing it and understanding that was part of the character, the second time I watched it, it made more sense because I
Yeah,
do think in editors they have to make tough decisions and all that. But I do think that a little bit of the story, that element of the story, did get sacrificed on the
yeah,
editing room floor. That, like I said, on that second watch, I got it. The first watch, little things I just missed, like when he made the joke, like the comment, or he made the joke, and Andre got mad about it. I thought he was just getting mad because he wasn't being serious, right?
yeah.
But
It was really about his
after you
family.
watch it, you
Yeah,
realize the backstory of why he was
yeah.
really getting mad. So yeah, that's like I say. But the reality is, you got to make that movie fit. Now, was that something you guys learned? Maybe that when you write the mystery that has action, maybe you need to write a little less because things take longer than in the in the rom com, you sort of do it, you kiss. How long does that take,
Yeah,
right? But
exactly, yeah.
when
Right.
you're jumping through a window or running around, maybe
Right.
scenes are longer, and so was that like a learning lesson, or was there anything else you learned?
I guess in a way they always kind of mandate to have a certain page count, and you kind of aim for that.
Can you
Um,
share what that is, or is
and,
that like top secret?
well, it's usually I don't know
Was it
100
one
pages,
oh
101 pages. I think.
Well, that's random. 101, not just 100. I mean, come
I
on. I guess you have to
think
have
it's like it's like
that one
101
extra
to
page
105 or
Yeah,
around there,
that they can
like a
throw away.
normal hour and a half is usually 110 pages.
Okay.
In the screenwriting lore, it's a minute per page. I mean, that's
Okay.
kind of how they think of it, but that doesn't include commercials.
Yeah,
That's kind of based on, again, a feature, something you would see in a streaming setting or at a movie theater, which would not have commercials. It's a little different, more so in Hallmark land because they have to obviously have those commercial breaks. Um, but that's kind of usually what we write for. Um, Yes, that maybe what was a learning experience to, but I'm not sure how then you take that away because all of those are the levels of your characters and that you really need to kind of plant in that beginning
Right.
episode to have it come back and make sense in subsequent episodes.
And you
So,
probably would get yelled at if you turned in a 90-page script and they
yes,
said, where's my
Yes, or
next
a
right.
give me my 11
120-page script
pages.
or something. Yeah.
I'm not
More
paying you full.
rats,
Yeah.
more rats, more for the rats to do.
They also had us do a production draft, where we didn't just correct or address aesthetic issues. They also had us combine scenes, if there was a scene that would be too expensive or a location that would be too expensive, maybe we would shoot it somewhere else, or shoot it like outside a building as opposed to indoors, and reduce the number of like background extras and so forth at a party. So there was a lot of that we had to deal with too, which was also sort of a learning process for us, where when you're writing your god, so you can just sort of well, whatever, they let them handle it. When we have the Eiffel Tower exploding, but yeah, at the end of the process, once we handed in the script, we did do this production draft for sort of budget reasons, and that was sort of an eye opener. It's like, oh yeah, we have to make this, and fit within the budget. We can't do all the things we necessarily would want to do, and so I think that'll steer us towards maybe avoiding too many extraneous scenes or scenes that require too much money, frankly,
Right.
in the future.
We
Interesting.
also had to, yeah, change a lot of names in terms of, at the end, legal does clearances. And so we had to change we had a magazine in there, which was a very difficult process to come up with a different magazine name because most every single fashion magazine out there has been taken already, as well as the fashion house. We had to change the name of the fashion house.
Yeah, certainly.
And that was difficult because we didn't want something too French that people couldn't pronounce. Um, so that was, and then there were a lot of names. People, we kind of named every character. Their last name was based on a fashion, Riccardo Dolce, Dolce and Gabbana. Um, we had Garavani for Valentino Garavani. We had all of these fashion last names. I think Charlotte Gautier is the only one that stuck. Um, the rest we ran into clearance problems, so we had
Yes.
we had
You're
to
the
kind of change them to, but that was just
Yeah,
that was
that
our
was yeah, that was
yeah,
actually that was,
that
often
was our thing.
harder than, coming up with new names was harder
Yeah,
than, the new title was harder than writing some of the scenes, because
Lawyers are
everything
the
was
worst.
taken apparently. So, and also with Crimes of Fashion too, I think, in Killer Clutch, there's only a certain number of letters that we could use. I mean, they sort of had you can only use, so many letters, and otherwise the title gets too long, to market. So we had to kind of come up with, like a really cool
Well,
title,
someone
in a
needs to
very
tell the
compressed
murder she
number of
baked
words.
chocolate chip cookie crunch
right,
miss
right.
like
That's right.
Yeah,
Allison
Yeah, I
Sweeney
don't think we
must be
could
able to
do.
pull some
I don't
strings
think we
there
could do
then.
like only murders in the building in Paris.
oh,
That
right,
would be
yeah,
like way
right.
too long.
All right.
For Hallmark.
All right. Well, I'm going to give a compliment and then maybe a little of a critique. So the compliment is, as you mentioned earlier, Stephanie, is a lot of sleuthers, especially if you watch a lot of the Hallmark movies, you kind of get the gist of how they go, and you can identify. All right, keep an eye on this character because it's usually this sort of secondary character who doesn't really fit in, but you keep seeing them, so you know they're going to come back as the killer, right?
Yeah.
But you stumped me on this one because I thought Virgil, but I'm like, nah, there's no way it could be
Too obvious.
Virgil, right?
Yeah,
And then at the end, like, whoa, surprise. Now, funny when you watch it the second time because of like his silhouette is
yeah,
easily identifiable. So the
Yeah,
second time, whatever, but you don't get to see like the first time you don't pay that much
you're
attention to
not
that
right. You're
silhouette,
not
right?
right.
So you definitely stumped me. So you guys did craft a good mystery. So I'll give you some kudos on that one.
Well, thank you.
And then the critique, and it's not necessarily my critique because I had no problem with it. But one of the feedback that I've heard a lot were a lot of people seemed, and I guess it's probably the Hallmark Midwest audience, had an issue with the accents,
Yeah,
yes,
and they had a
yeah,
real tough time. My solution is throw on the closed captions and
yeah,
whatever, be done with it, right?
yeah.
But people seem to have an issue now. Is that something like you guys anticipated? Hallmark anticipated, like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe this Paris thing seems great, but oops, or anything? Like, how do you guys
Yeah,
feel about that feedback?
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about actually subsequently because we heard some of the same critiques. Again, it was a largely European cast. And so I agree with you. Anymore, we run subtitles on a lot of shows because studios have cut back on the sound department where normal, shows that are in English, sometimes we have a problem going, wait, what did they say?
yeah,
Because
the
the
mix is
aspect,
off.
it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
something with the aspect
But we're
ratio.
in our mid-50s, so that comes
Yeah,
with the
yeah, our
that's
territory.
hearing is going. There we go. Yeah,
yeah. And so, yes, that is something we didn't anticipate. Again, we were kind of thinking that they were going to shoot this in Canada, so it would have been kind of more people maybe the opposite, doing the kind of the French accent, but they were, a Canadian actor or an American actor. The inverse was that we had a largely European cast, and then some of the accents were, a little easier to understand. But we also then felt it wouldn't be authentic if we were had all these Americans in Paris that she
Right.
was working with at a supposedly Parisian fashion
yeah,
house. So it is something for us to think about in the future.
yeah,
Patrick, the photographer, was an American, and they did cast him American. Um, you know, uh, the magazine editor Diana was British. She. So I think we need to be kind of thinking about maybe more of that continental.
So
Because
you're not going to head
or
over to Italy and have a whole bunch of strong Italian accents and like that
yeah,
I
idea.
exactly.
That
I
yeah,
idea
think
got wiped off the
yeah, I
whiteboard
think
right
it
away.
was something we just I don't want to say we were surprised by it, but yeah, yeah, we sort of saw that as an issue too, and I guess it might, yeah, in the future it might, we were sort of writing sort of for the kind of the American snappy, dialogue style. And I think maybe in the future maybe we'll dial back on that possibly just to make it in case they come up with someone who say can't handle English as well, um, and maybe can't spit out those snappy lines as quickly and as kind of clearly as say an American or a British actor can do. But yeah, I guess that's an interesting thing with casting. You just yeah, it's something it's sort of out of the writer's hands at the
yeah,
end of the
Yeah,
very
day,
much so.
and
yeah,
you
Yeah.
hope that it works. Now, again, yeah, I thought the accents were very authentic though, so that was the cool part of it. But yeah, sometimes, yeah, I even I wrote the dialogue and I was having a bit of trouble sometimes following what was being said.
the flip side though is if you had those French Canadians, then you would have had everyone complaining that they didn't have authentic French accents because
Exactly. Yeah, they're
I forget
all
what it was,
phony.
like Muriel's Lighthouse or
Yeah.
whatever, the one that they did last year with Luke McFarlane when he was over in France. Like everyone was complaining that she didn't have, you know, a real
like a
French accent.
like a
So
legitimate
yeah.
accent. You're sort of
So
like damned if you
I
do,
guess
damned
it's
if you don't, I suppose.
exactly, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but yeah, it is something. Yeah, we'll think about in the future as far as uh, maybe kind of skewing the dialogue in case um, some of the actors have accents that are sort of tough to get. In case the actor has a tough time getting his hands around the English dialogue.
I will say, by the way,
You
Odine
simplified a bit.
is who I was. Odine is how you say it, right? That's what's her name?
Undine. Yes.
Undine.
Yeah.
That's who I was convinced early on was going to be the
Yeah. Oh,
killer,
good.
and
Okay.
you went ahead and
Okay.
killed
Told
her.
you.
So you ruined it. From that point on, I was like, oh damn,
You're lost.
Right.
I don't know where to go here.
Well,
So
and we kind of thought of that because we thought, oh wait, all signs are pointing to Undine. Let's shake things up a little bit. Let's really give this a midpoint shake up by introducing second body, second victim. And a lot of people were pointing to, oh, it's got to be her. It's got to be her. So that was fun to be able to do, and then working in the whole kind of counterfeiting ring, which is kind of plaguing a lot of houses these days, especially with handbags. Yeah, it
Very
just
timely. That's right.
yeah seemed kind of a natural place to go. So
you guys
Now
had
we talk
mentioned.
about French noir for 3 hours.
Yes. Well, you had mentioned you're working on a Christmas movie.
Yes,
I know you cannot tell us too much about it, but is
it
there
involves fashion
anything, any
retailing.
little tease you can give us about that?
Uh, I don't know
Oh,
if
what
we
cheese
can
can we
do it
get?
without giving it away.
It'll air this Christmas. I just
Okay,
Okay.
don't know when. Yeah, I'm
any
reluctant to say
dates?
anything because, again, our title might be changing. So if I even told you the title, it might be changing.
Well,
So
that'd be perfect then,
um,
because then you'd say a title that meant nothing.
Well, it
right,
might not be changing, so that's
I would
the,
say, please, well, didn't bother me, but you may not want to set it in France with French actors.
no,
So, you
this is
that's
know,
right.
actually
This
okay.
is
I can give you
this
just
is not this is in America, or well,
it's in
Canada.
America. In fact, it's in different locations in America. So it's more of a it's
okay.
not a road trip movie per se, but there's a lot of different parts of the country that are represented, which
Yep.
makes it a really fun Christmas idea that's very different. You really have not seen this
Yes,
um,
this is sort of
on
another high concept.
Hallmark, and we're working with our same producers that we did with Making Spirits Bright. So
But
that's always great. The the guys are really great to work with, and kind of the idea came about. We sent them a different idea, and they said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this idea?" So then it became something completely new, and it's evolved ever since. And there's a lot of action in this as well, which is fun. Um, so
wait, wait, wait,
Now
wait, wait, wait.
it's
Here
not it's
you
not
are. You
now
gave
you're
me a whole
tantalizing him too much.
lecture. No, no, no. You gave a whole lecture about how Hallmark, because of budget restraints, cut all the stuff out of there. And now you're doing this multi-location with all this action. Did
now
you not learn anything?
I
Come
know.
on.
Well,
Ah,
we might be doing
We
a
seem
lot
to
of
gravitate towards these kind of elevated,
uh,
high concept super productions at Hallmark. So
well, I wish it luck that it turns into what you want instead of
yeah, no,
yeah.
but it's a lot of fun. It's kind of yeah, no, yeah, Stephanie. Yeah, I don't know if we can tell you any more without giving it all away, but yeah, it's a large cast too. So I suppose that's another thing we could tell you. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it's yeah, we're having a lot of fun writing it, and but yeah,
Is it
well, it's
based
just
off
it's a joy to
another?
work for Hallmark. I mean, the great thing about Hallmark is that they make the movies. I mean, I was telling you before that I'd written other screenplays that you know I was paid to do a draft, and nothing was ever made of it. And here they always make the movie. When you write the script, and it's just a wonderful feeling. Just
Now,
yeah.
is this new movie based off another like completely inappropriate Hallmark character like Wendy Rhodes?
Nope.
I don't think
Okay.
so. No, this is a
Nope.
normal. This is a
He's a
fairly normal
teacher.
one for us.
We're good. Yep, all good.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no whips or chains in this one either. So
Okay. Well,
I don't
Hallmark
think
is getting a little bit looser, but I'm
Yeah,
not quite sure they're there
yeah.
yet.
The Way Home has time travel, and yeah, they're starting
Right.
to
Yeah.
they're sending us to France, and for a mystery. So yeah, that's the other cool thing now too. It's they're opening things up a bit more as far as kind of different
Right.
approaches,
Right.
different
Yeah.
ideas. Breaking the mold a bit more, and so it's a much more exciting time to be, I guess, pitching and working at Hallmark. Yeah, and the great thing
Well,
about again Hallmark again we started writing this in beginning of 2023, Crimes of Fashion, I mean, and they were making the movie by the end of the year, so it's just a wonderfully quick
and
turnaround.
you had this, and
So so
maybe
refreshing.
sooner, but you had this because you had the strike
That's true too. Yes.
come
Yeah.
come
Exactly.
slow
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
down. So
Yeah.
who knows when it would
Yeah.
have been? Okay.
But even then, it's like lightning fast. It's not.
Right.
They don't let the scripts just lie on a shelf for 50 years.
Years. Yeah.
They make the movie, and it's just yeah, it's wonderful working for them as a result.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, I'm very excited for the Hallmark Christmas. What's the Christmas vacation movie
yeah, that's right.
that you're making? 'Cause I have a vision of the Griswolds driving across country, Hallmark,
I
Winnebago.
guess it has some of those elements, but the plot's different. But it has some of those elements. You might be sort of getting to that John Hughes territory a bit. Yeah.
It has movement. So right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Tom, Stephanie, this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for joining us
No,
and filling
Thank
us in a
you.
little bit
so we
more
can't
in the
talk another 5
backstory.
hours. You're saying we can't go
So,
on.
oh, we can. I'll have to stop recording, but I can talk.
Yeah, that's right.
I can
You'll
talk
just
all
kind of
day
when your
on it.
screen will go black, and I'll
Yeah.
just keep talking.
Yeah.
But we really
Well, then
appreciate
it'll really be like a French movie then. Just
Yeah,
Q&A, and
yeah.
you just keep going and going and going and everything. So
24 hours of just babbling on about old movies.
right.
Yeah.
Well, we
Uh,
love what you've built with this podcast. I think it's really great that it's really solely about Hallmark mysteries. Kudos, and it was such a pleasure to talk to you today. And
yes.
thanks
That's great.
again.
Thanks,
Well,
Eric. Yeah. For
when
bringing
we
us on.
have the I don't know what the murdering heels are, like the deadly stilettos or something like that.
It's
Or
right.
for the next episode, we'll have you back on.
Yes.
Great.
Can't wait.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Eric.
All right. That was a really fun conversation. It's always great hearing all the backstories of, what it takes to make a Hallmark movie. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking to them. Next week, we will be reviewing Crossword Mysteries, Terminal Descent. Plus, we're going to be breaking down the results of the Who's the Best Mystery contest and giving our insights, a little more behind the scenes of what was going on with all that. So it should be really interesting. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.